So the question is, what existed before God? Today, we're going to take a look at a banned book, a book that was banned by the church, declared a heresy, called On the Origin of the World. A very interesting book that explores, well, the origin of existence prior to God. It's very interesting. We're going to take a look at that today, and it's going to be good. It's a very interesting book. Now, before we begin, I want to say, hey, please like and subscribe. It helps out a lot. And if you enjoy my work, consider supporting on Patreon. You get access to members-only videos every single week and the whole archive. You can do that by going to patreon.com/MorgueOfficial, or if you join on YouTube at tier 2 or higher. Also, watch out. There are a lot of scams out there. There are people pretending to be me in the comments, saying, join my WhatsApp, join my Telegram. Remember, that's not me. Don't fall for that stuff. Also, there are people out there who don't want the information that I am talking about to get out there. So there are people and groups spreading a lot of disinformation and misinformation about me and what we're doing. So be on the lookout for that. Don't fall for that BS. Use your mind, use your head. All right. Let us begin. Today, we're talking about the origin of the world, or On the Origin of the World, which discusses what existed before God. Now, like I said, these were from a series of banned texts. It's similar to the Secret Book of John, but it approaches things in a different way. The Secret Book of John is very interesting, and I've actually been thinking about maybe revisiting them and doing more videos on the Secret Book of John, because I did them a long time ago and I'd like to kind of update them. But the Secret Book of John approaches things from a more Platonic kind of philosophical way. This approaches things in quite a different way, more in a narrative fashion. But let's jump into it right away and you'll see exactly what I mean. This is some very interesting stuff. So let me bring this up. By the way, On the Origin of the World, and almost all the banned books that we talk about, you can read for free on gnosis.org. That's gnosis.org. So just throwing that up here. So this is On the Origin of the World, and we start with Before the Beginning. Very dramatic. Let me make this a little smaller so it doesn't cover my face. It says, since everyone, the gods of the world and people, say that nothing existed prior to chaos, I shall demonstrate that they are all mistaken, since they do not know the origin of chaos and its root. Here is the demonstration. So it's one of those things where basically the author here is saying, everyone says that nothing existed prior to chaos. And what is chaos? Well, it depends on what system you're talking about, but generally chaos is this state of the universe before order was introduced, and it's out of this chaos that eventually like order and matter are born. So it's thinking of this primordial state of a chaotic state, and then eventually, like I said, order and matter come forth from this. Now, what this person is saying, what I like about it is kind of interesting. He's basically saying, you know, everyone out there, whether a god or people, say that nothing existed prior to chaos, and this person is saying, hey, I'm going to demonstrate that this is not the case. And what I like about this is I feel like it's that, you know, I recently did a video called What Created God. And if you haven't watched my video on What Created God, go check that out. That's very interesting. If you like this topic, you'll really love that topic as well. But it's that idea of, I'm sure when you were a kid, you go, hey, what created God? And people go, oh, well, you know, God's eternal. You can't understand that. It just is. Or if you ask, well, what existed before God? And you'll just get the answer like, oh, well, nothing existed before God. God is eternal, etc. And I feel like this person kind of had that experience where he's saying everyone says nothing existed prior to chaos, but they don't really understand what chaos is. I'm going to demonstrate what actually happened. So let's see what this person is claiming. How agreeable is it to all people to say that chaos is darkness, but actually chaos comes from a shadow that has been called darkness? So he's saying that, or they, I don't know their gender, they are saying that out of chaos comes, and what's interesting too is you traditionally, it seems like a lot of men have been authors of scriptures and whatnot. But what's cool about Gnosticism, and this is a Gnostic text, is there was a lot of female empowerment in Gnosticism. There were, female leaders, specifically like Marcellina, who was leader of the Marcellians and tried to take over Christianity in Rome. Very, very cool. Anyway, I digress. Let me continue here. So this person's saying is chaos actually comes from something. Chaos comes from a shadow. Chaos comes from a darkness. So he's saying most people say that chaos, there's nothing before it, but it actually came from something, this darkness, this shadow. The shadow comes from something existing from the beginning. So he's saying not, and shadow isn't even what is fundamental. Shadow came from something. So he's saying, they are saying chaos comes from shadow, and shadow comes from something else. So it is obvious that something in the beginning existed before chaos, and that chaos came after what is in the beginning. Now, let us consider the facts of the matter, and in particular, what was in the beginning from which chaos came. In this way, the truth will be clearly demonstrated. And for those who aren't familiar with these kinds of texts that were banned by the church, these heretical texts, the God of the Bible, the God of the Old Testament, the God that created the world that you all learned about in Sunday school, is considered to be an evil being. And this is exactly what this book is going to talk about, is the state of the universe before that evil being came into existence, and how that evil being came into existence. And then it goes into the story of creation and what that evil being is doing and why that evil being is trapping souls and matter. So this is quite an interesting book, telling this story of what existed before the God of the Bible, how that God of the Bible was born or created or became, and then what it's doing by creating and orchestrating this material world. So this individual is talking now about the state of reality before that God, the God of the Old Testament, came into being. Now let us consider the facts of the matter, and in particular, what was in the beginning, from which chaos came. In this way, the truth will be clearly demonstrated. Now, we move to the section, The Birth of Sophia and the Forces of Darkness. So, after the nature of the immortals was completed out of the infinite one, then a likeness called Sophia flowed out of Pistis, with the wish that something should come into being, like the light that first existed. All right, so what's happening here? Now, the interesting thing about this book is that it skips a huge part of the creation of existence, or not even the creation of existence, but what existence is. And that is the one, the infinite one. Because you see right away, it just says, after the nature of the mortals was completed out of the infinite one. They completely skip the one, how the one begins to differentiate its mind, and all these different beings or facets of the mind come into being. So I did a video on the Secret Book of John explaining that, where the Secret Book of John goes into detail about how this divine mind, which they call the infinite one in this book, begins to emanate and order and structure itself with divine beings. I may do a video on that at some point, if there's interest. But just to say, in this one line, they're skipping all that. So just as a quick recap, what is encapsulated here, were in the sentence, after the nature of the immortals were completed out of the infinite one, is that in this, so this is I don't think I mentioned it for those who are new. This is one book of a system called Gnosticism. So this is Gnostic thought. Gnosticism comes from the word gnosis, which means knowledge. So it's about understanding, having knowledge. So in Gnosticism, there is one mind. And I'm just going to explain this real quick because that's not really what this book is about, but just for completeness sake, there is one divine mind called the One, and it is a being of pure, perfect light or pure, perfect thought. And this mind or this beginning, this mind or this light begins to structure itself, and it structures itself in the form of beings, or what they call eons. And you have different beings that represent aspects of the mind. So when they introduce Pistis and Sophia, these are aspects of that divine mind. So Sophia is wisdom, and Pistis is faith. So you can see that these beings represent aspects of the mind, and being that these are sort of pure aspects of the mind, you have things like wisdom and faith, where it is pure mental constructs. You know, nothing material, not matter, but mental faculties like wisdom that the mind has structured itself. So, out of this structuring of the divine mind, where it says after the nature of the immortals was completed out of the infinite one, a likeness called Sophia flowed out of Pistis. So out of faith came wisdom, and wisdom, Sophia, had the wish that something should come into being like the light that first existed. So Sophia, wisdom, wanted to create something, wanted to make something that was similar to the divine mind, the light from the beginning. Immediately, her wish appeared as a heavenly likeness with an incomprehensible greatness. This came between the immortals and those who came into being after them. Like what is above, it was a veil separating people from the things above. So what Sophia on The Origin of the World does is create a heavenly-like, incomprehensible greatness that is sort of like the light of the One, but not exactly. It's kind of like an intermediary, and it's a veil that comes in between that divine perfect mind and what will eventually become the everything that comes after. So we'll see exactly what that is in a moment. Now, the eternal realm of truth has no shadow within it because the immeasurable light is everywhere within it. Outside it, however, is a shadow, and it was called darkness. So this is really interesting. It's saying that within the divine mind, the realm of truth, there's no shadow, meaning basically it is perfect. But outside of it, there is a shadow, and it's called darkness. Now, here's the thing to understand is that everything is a product of this divine mind. So what's happening is that we can understand this in terms of mathematics. So, for example, and I'm going to see if I can do this without getting too technical here, but in mathematics, you have something called a projection, and it's kind of like a shadow. And so what happens is that you can have a set of perfect mathematical frequencies, but by altering some of those mathematical frequencies, they can project a different configuration. So one way to think of it is kind of like a hologram. So in a hologram, let's say that this is, and I'll just explain this real quick because I want to just kind of get the idea across of what's happening here. When you have this shadow that is not part of it, because that area is perfect, but nonetheless is not exactly a product of it, but a shadow of it. So let me explain. A shadow is a shadow. A shadow is a projection. So anyway, let's say that you have, let's say this is a laser pointer, okay? So you have a laser pointer, and then for a hologram, what happens is you have the holographic plate, you shine the laser on the holographic plate, which is just a piece of film that has an interference pattern. So you shine it on the film, and then you see the hologram. If you look at it, you see the hologram projected. So you have the source beam that shines on the holographic plate, and this is what gives rise to the hologram. And it can be, let's say it's a hologram of Earth. Just why not? So what happens here is, if you look at this setup where you have the source beam, the holographic plate, and then the Earth, the hologram of the Earth, you could say that the hologram of the Earth is the shadow. Now, of course, it's not literally a shadow, but remember, we're being metaphorical in terms of, on the origin of the world. It's a projection. So the source remains perfect. The source beam, there's no hologram inside of the source beam. There's no projection inside of the source beam. The source beam is perfect, but there is a projection of it, which in our example, when it runs through an interference pattern, forms an image of the world. That image of the world, we can say, is the projection of the source beam, but it's not inside of the source beam. That source beam we can think of like the realm of perfect light. Okay? So it says the eternal realm of truth has no shadow within it, because the immeasurable light is everywhere within it. It's the perfect source beam. There's no hologram, no projection, no shadow inside of it. Outside of it, however, is a shadow, and it was called darkness. Now, you can think of this as being imperfect. Why is it imperfect? Well, when you have the interference pattern, that light is becoming imperfect. The generation of something that is like matter is, you can call imperfection. You can call it, because it's not ordered in a symmetrical way anymore. It's become asymmetrical. There's difference has been introduced. This is a world of difference. The only reason why we can experience this is because of difference. And you could say, perhaps, that difference is imperfection. I don't like to look at it that way. But if you're doing it from like a purely mathematical symmetrical point of view, if you say that difference is imperfection, then that is what gives rise to the world, is difference. Because look, I am here, you are there. There is up in relation to down. Some people are tall, some people are short, some people are strong, some people are weak. Everything is difference. Everything is, we have this experience of the world, even just extension. Me being here and you being over there is difference. We experience this world because of difference. When all difference is gone and everything returns to a state of pure unity, there's just the realm of pure light, that source beam. And this is one thing that I want to talk about here. And we're going to get to this in just a moment. So Sophia is going to make a creation, and it's a heavenly creation, but it's not quite like the perfect light. It becomes a veil. You could almost even think of it as like sort of like that holographic plate almost, where how I said you have the source beam, then you have the holographic plate, and then you have the hologram. And the holographic plate is kind of in between the two. That's a bit like what's going on here, where you have the source beam. Sophia creates this kind of, you could say, like a holographic plate. And then you have what will become the material world, we'll see in a moment. Now, one thing that I want to point out here is that in Gnosticism, Sophia is kind of condemned, or not really condemned. Sophia is a heroic figure, but the creation of matter is looked at as a negative thing. So in the Secret Book of John, this story is also told, and it says that Sophia created out of harmony with her partner. So in the divine mind, every being has a partner, and they create in synchronicity. So basically, Sophia wanted to create something by herself. She wanted to have an independent thought, and out of her independent thought ended up being born the world of matter, we'll see indirectly. And in Gnosticism, matter is looked at as evil, this trap, And I don't agree. So I don't look at what Sophia did as is wrong or bad or evil. I think that having independent thought and wishing to create is a beautiful and great thing, because imagine just being stuck in that world of perfect, pure light for eternity. Eventually that would be hell. It would be boring. It would be tedious. And you would want something different to occur. You would want something different to happen. So the creation of a material world is not necessarily a bad thing. Now, of course, it's looked at as very bad in Gnosticism. It's looked at as a prison, etc. But that's one of the things that I don't agree with in Gnosticism. I think Gnosticism is very interesting, but their negative view on the material world, I think, is wrong. And I think the view that we should have, and the view that we have in the Neogenian system, is that we are gods. And what do gods do? Gods create and transform. So in the Neogenian, it's not about trying to escape the material world like Gnosticism, where it's, oh, the material world is evil, we have to escape, we have to escape, we have to escape. It's about transforming the world and realizing the world is our kingdom to create whatever we so will. Now, there's different forms of Gnosticism. And in the Gospel of Thomas, another banned book, that's the view that's taken, where the kingdom of heaven is inside you and all around you. You just need to realize it. That's the version that I agree with more, in that we need to create and transform this world, because look at all the systems that want you to escape. Gnosticism, oh, it's evil, escape, escape. Buddhism, oh, achieve nirvana, detach. Christianity, oh, we have to get to heaven. Everything's about escaping, and Nietzsche called this the Hinterwelt, or other world. People are so obsessed with this other world that they don't appreciate or transform or take care of the world that we're in. Imagine if all these religions and systems, instead of saying, oh, let's escape, let's escape, let's escape, instead said, let's create a better earth, let's transform it, and let's work together. We'd have a brilliant, beautiful earth, and we wouldn't want to leave. We'd be like, this is great. This is a fantastic experience. Let's continue to create. Let's see what we can do together. Let's see what we can build together, because this is our world. This is our world of difference that we're here to explore, learn, and grow in. Not to escape, not something evil, not something. It seems like it's very evil right now, but that's because it's run by individuals who are in a low state of consciousness. That's why our goal in the Neogenian is to create a new beginning through a new consciousness, by having people reach hyper-awareness, where they realize that we are all interconnected and we're co-creators here to build a new earth right here, right now, that we are creating the kingdom of heaven on earth right now. We are the second coming of Christ, that Christ consciousness. We are the creators. We are that inner apocalypse, that inner unveiling, that revelation. Apocalypse means unveiling. That which is hidden becomes unveiled. So we want to create a new world. We want to create a new earth, and not this idea of, oh, that it's evil or escape from it. Long story short, I went off a little bit on a tangent, but I don't see Sophia as doing something that is wrong. Sophia wanted to have an independent thought. Sophia wanted to create something. And then, of course, they say that, all this evil was born from it. Not necessarily so. The world begins in a very chaotic and corrupt state. But what happens? There's the Big Bang, and billions of years of evolution. We eventually link to avatars that can develop self-awareness. So yeah, guess what? The world is in chaos. That's kind of like that chaos that they're talking about. What does Gnosticism say to do? Oh, we got to escape from it. No. What do we need to do? We're gods. We are the ones that order it. We are the ones that transform it. We don't go, oh my God, this chaos is horrible, we have to escape. No, we go, we are the very beings that are here to give order to this chaos and create a world of beauty. So it's about seeing this as a medium for us to build, like a potter in the clay or a painter in the canvas, not something to just run away from. We're here to, this is exactly what we're here to do. Trying to get away from it is missing the point entirely. Why would we even be here if the point is to just leave right away? It doesn't make sense. Why would we, we're here and now we're here to leave? No, we are here to embrace our power, learn how to step into our divinity and create a new world together as co-creators and create a new beginning. But anyway, let's getting a little ahead of myself here. So the eternal realm of truth has no shadow within it because the immeasurable light is everywhere within it. So we talked about that in terms of the hologram, where you can look at the source beam as being the realm of pure light. You can kind of look at the holographic plate as that in-between state that Sophia creates, that's in between what will eventually be matter and the divine. So outside of it, however, is a shadow, and it was called darkness. From it appeared a power over the darkness, and the powers that came into being afterward called the shadow the limitless chaos. From it, every kind of deity was brought forth, one after another, along with the whole place. Consequently, the shadow, too, is subsequent to what was in the beginning. The shadow appeared in the abyss, which is derived from Pistis, whom we have mentioned. The shadow perceived that there was one stronger than it. So you have all this, all these things being born, all these things occurring, and you can kind of understand this when you have, in terms of the hologram, when you have the source beam. If you now can introduce change and difference and interference, you can have all sorts of things start emerging. Now, the shadow perceived that there was one stronger than it, that is the source beam, the realm of divine light, and it was jealous. And when it became self-impregnated, it immediately bore envy. So the shadow was jealous of the pure realm of light, and from its self-impregnation comes envy. Now you can see this is almost a structuring of a mind, but almost like an imperfect mind. You have this perfect mind, which has things like wisdom and faith, etc., that are aspects of this mind. And now the shadow, though, is now structuring in ways that are disharmonious, like envy and jealousy. See, from jealousy, it became self-impregnated, which bore envy. You have these structures developing. Since that day, the principle of envy has appeared in all of the eons and their worlds. But envy was found to be an aborted fetus without any spirit in it. It became like the shadows in a great watery substance. Then the bitter wrath came into being from the shadow and was cast into a region of chaos. Since that day, a watery substance has appeared. So you're basically having more structuring. You have jealousy engendering envy, and that sort of infecting everything, and then wrath coming into being. What was enclosed in the shadow flowed forth, appearing in chaos, just as all the useless afterbirth of one who bears a little child falls. So there, you can see Gnostics really don't like the material world, or even, we haven't even really got to the birth of matter yet. This is just a mind that is structuring itself in all these negative ways. And they're comparing it to like the afterbirth of an aborted fetus, just all this, chaos occurring. Likewise, the matter that came into being from the shadow was cast aside. Matter did not come out of chaos, but it was in chaos, existing in a part of it. So they're just saying that matter is part of all this chaos that's occurring, that was in there. Now, after these things happened, Pistis came and appeared over the matter of chaos, which was cast off like an aborted fetus. So Pistis came over, and Pistis is faith, and out of faith comes Sophia, which is wisdom. So do you see how there's this structuring, sort of like how you had jealousy, and out of jealousy came envy? Well, this is in the divine mind, you have faith, and out of faith comes wisdom, which is pistis, and comes Sophia. So you can think of them sort of like they're different entities, but they're sometimes referred to interchangeably because, just sort of like you can use jealousy and envy in like an interchangeable way. They're not exactly the same. They're saying like, oh, envy came from jealousy, but you can see how they're similar. Well, when you talk about pistis, you're also talking about Sophia, because later it says, now when pistis Sophia wanted to cause, et cetera, et cetera. So pistis Sophia is sort of like a form of a being, even though it's one engenders the other. So anyway, now after these things happened, pistis, or pistis Sophia, came and appeared over the matter of chaos, which was cast off like an aborted fetus, since there was no spirit in it. It's just this dead, lifeless matter. For all of that is a boundless darkness and water of unfathomable depth. And when Pistis saw what came into being from her deficiency, she was disturbed. And the disturbance appeared as something frightful, and it fled to her in the chaos. So you can see that Pistis Sophia, was disturbed from what came into being from her deficiency, or from what she lacked. Again, I really don't like all this negativity associated with it, but you can understand it, how the Gnostics just hated matter, because look how torturous this world can seem. So you can see how they just attribute all this negativity to it. So when she saw all the matter and all the things that came forth because of her creation, her deficiency in her creation, she was disturbed. And just to, I know I keep going off on tangents, but remember, I just want to, because I know a lot of this stuff can be kind of confusing. Why does this occur? Because of her deficiency, etc. Well, I really think the holographic metaphor is really helpful, because if you see her creating that holographic plate, it's exactly the imperfections or the interference is what gives rise to something dimensional. So what she created was not as perfect as the perfect light. It had deficiencies, and these deficiencies is what gave rise to this shadow and chaos and jealousy and envy and all this sort of thing. And matter. And now she's looking over matter, seeing all these things, and she was disturbed. And this disturbance appeared as something frightful, and it fled to her in the chaos. She turned to it and breathed into its face in the abyss, which is beneath all the heavens. So when it says that she breathed into it, she gave it some of her power. So she saw this thing that appeared because of her disturbance. And it went to her. She breathed into it and gave it some of her power. Now, when Pistis Sophia wanted to cause the thing that had no spirit to be formed into a likeness and rule over matter and all its powers, a ruler first appeared out of the waters. So what Sophia is basically doing here is Sophia is giving power to this thing and wants it to be a being that rules over matter and all its powers. Because you can imagine Sophia created this realm. Out of the imperfection or deficiency of her realm comes this world of shadow and chaos. And Sophia goes over there and it's like, well, goddamn, this isn't good. And so what Sophia wants to do is have a ruler to be able to order it and rule over it and, give it some form, because you can see that obviously things are a mess. They're chaotic. They're formless. They're all over the place. She wants there to be a ruler to try and take care of this realm. So she gives some of her power to this being, and then a ruler appeared out of the waters, lion-like in appearance, looked like a lion, androgynous, with great authority within himself, but ignorant of whence he came into being. So this lion-like creature appears, androgynous, has great power, but doesn't know how he came into being. When Pistis Sophia saw him moving in the depths of the water, she said to him, "Youth, pass over here," or "child, pass over here," which is interpreted as Yaldabaoth. So Yaldabaoth has this meaning of "child, pass over here," or I've heard it also interpreted as, I think, "one who goes back and forth," or something like this. So Yaldabaoth has to do with movement. The meaning of Yaldabaoth has to do with motion. Since that day, the first principle of the word that referred to the gods and angels and people had appeared. So this being, Yaldabaoth, who was born out of darkness, born into this abyss, is what is, according to Gnostics, the God of what would become the Bible, the God of what would be Old Testament scriptures. So this, the God of the Bible that modern day Christians worship, Gnostics would go, that's an evil being, that's Yaldabaoth, that is the Lord of matter, born from shadow and darkness and jealousy and envy. And you can see why they would think that. In the Bible, God constantly says, "I am a jealous God. There is no God but me." And we'll get to that, where Yaldabaoth starts saying all these things and starts declaring itself to be God, etc. But anyway, so since that day, the first principle of the word that referred to the gods and angels and people has appeared. And the gods and angels and people constitute that which came into being by means of the word. Moreover, the ruler Yaldabaoth is ignorant of the power of Pistis. He did not see her face, but he saw in the water the likeness that spoke with him. And from that voice he called himself Yaldabaoth. But the perfect ones call him Ariel, because he was like a lion, and after he came to possess authority over matter, and Pistis Sophia withdrew up to her light. So basically what happens here, like I said, Sophia creates this heavenly realm, this realm between darkness and light. Darkness is born from it, chaos is born from it, all sorts of jealousy and envy, horrible things are occurring. Sophia goes over there into this realm, sees what a mess it is. This creature comes up because of her disturbance, like her disturbance causes this creature to come to her, and she wants a ruler to rule over it. So she breathes her power into this being. This being becomes the ruler, calls itself Yaldabaoth, and he now has authority over matter, the one who's supposed to rule over matter and give form to matter. So what we're going to see next, where we have Yaldabaoth creates heaven and earth and bears 3 sons and the 7 heavens of chaos. And we're going to see it now where Yaldabaoth really starts to get out of control. Because remember, this is the God of the Bible. And this being who's supposed to be ruling over matter starts to get completely out of control, starts saying that he's the true God, that there is no God but him, and starts creating this hellish world and creating these demonic beings called archons. And that is what we'll get into next time, because there's actually a lot. There is a lot in the I'm sorry, I didn't have this up the whole time, but that's okay. So there is a lot where we'll be talking about how he creates the heaven and the earth and the 7 heavens of chaos, and it gets into him creating death and creating the plants and the animals, and eventually creating humanity and trapping humanity in matter. It gets very, very interesting. So that's what we will be talking about next time. Now, if you enjoyed that, there's going to be more videos. So take a look next week. If you're watching this from the future, then check out the playlist that this will likely be a part of. And if you did enjoy this video, check out my video called What Created God? I just released it, and it talks about the divine mind that existed prior to everything and how that can possibly exist. And that's very important. So my friends, if you join my work, as always, please like and subscribe and support over on Patreon if you can. It's a great way to help. I never want anyone to feel pressured, so never feel pressured to have to do that, but it helps out if you can, and it allows me to create bigger and better things and have a roof over my head and all that. You get access to members-only videos every single week, and you can get access to that by going to the link right here, or be joining tier 2 or higher on YouTube. I want to shout out everyone who does support, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, Fairies of Venus, DB, William Hood, Enki, Nusalina, Jose, and everyone else. Thank you very much.